Welcome to Meme Free Songs. I'm Sara Feigin.
And I'm Jenna, and this is the podcast where we take the piss and debunk music fan stereotypes. Because let's be honest, Fangirls knew about that band way before you did.
And if you stick around long enough, we'll also let you in on some new music the girls are already crazy about. So if you joined us last week, you know we talked about the fact that fangirls are made to feel invalid by the music media because they're young and crazy. And I mean, fangirls are constantly made to feel guilty about loving something that's created specifically for them.
So today, we have a part 2 of this discussion on fangirls, and we are going to dive into bands that have said some pretty controversial things about having a predominantly female fan base. So Sara, why do guys in bands think that having mainly female fans is a bad thing?
I feel like if you have any thoughts on this, you should start, and then I can just end on a high note.
What are my thoughts on this, man? Okay. So we were talking about this in like if we talk about like our pop punk scene again, and we take the band like the Main as an example, they have a lot of girl fans, but they have dude fans too. And you had brought up some point about like somebody making fun of the Main, saying like they're only making music for girls, and like I don't think that's true at all, especially bands that are like in pop punk. They're making music because like that's what they want to be doing. Maybe they want to be cool in general. Maybe they want girls to like them, but they're not like, oh, if I write this lyric, like this girl will swoon. Like that's not their intention. Their intention is like, I want to make music and I want to be cool. And so I think especially like a band like the Main that's been around for so long, who's like evolved so much, is like they're purely making music for themselves. So to say that it only has to do with girls is also like very limiting to like the Main's capability as like an artist. And in general, like it doesn't really matter who the fan is if it's authentic, real music that somebody was passionate about making.
Yeah, and I mean, with the Main, the thing that frustrated me was it's like I had an ex-boyfriend who just was like, oh, like this music's created for girls, and like we went and we like happened to be in Dublin on my birthday, and the Main also happened to be in Dublin on my birthday. Like it was just a coincidence.
You just happened to be in Dublin for your birthday.
Well, I like went to Dublin for my birthday, and the Main happened to also be there, and so I was like, oh, let's go, because they were playing at like a 250 cap venue, and like I hadn't seen them play somewhere that small in like years, and I was like, okay, we're gonna go. And he complained the whole time, and I like don't remember the show. I just remember this boy complaining and being like, oh, like there's like not really any guys here, like I don't understand how you listen to this music. And like from what I remember about that relationship, like I don't even think he like was a big music fan, so I don't know why he just like just like incessantly hated them when like he knew nothing about it. And it was just really weird. And I just remember that like when he said like, oh, like they're clearly, I think it was like after they played Into Your Arms, he was like, oh, like they clearly are making music that they know girls are gonna like. And it's like, okay, maybe they saw that like they were attracting more female fans, and they maybe directed their songwriting in a way that would like make girls feel like important or welcome. I don't know, but I'm like, they write their own music. Like there's not some weird calculated thing behind it like there is with boy bands. But also like throughout the Main's like 13-year career, as they've grown as artists, they've also garnered more male fans. Because I remember when I first started going to their shows, it was like maybe 5% boys, and now it's like probably 50-50, honestly. And I don't know, because I like try not to read things about this, but I just feel like I'm sure that people are acknowledging that they're creating music, that they're making music now that's like more palatable for males. Like I'm sure somebody mentioned it, but like I don't think that that's a thing. Like I think that's ridiculous. I think that at some point the Main was just like, we like dad band music, so we're gonna start making dad band music. But like girls like dad band music. Like that's not like a thing. But I do feel like at some point they got kind of dad bandy, but I don't think it was to attract more male fans. I think it was just like, I think it just made sense in the progression they were making in music.
Yeah, I agree. Even All Time Low, like because I went to so many of their shows. It just seems very shallow as like from an artist perspective. It seems very shallow to think that like, oh, we're not taken seriously because only girls like us.
Mhm.
Um, but there is a difference between a small difference between that and them not wanting to be known as a boy band because bands like McFly, right?
Yeah.
What's your story with them?
Well, Fly was like a group that sort of created themselves. So Tom Fletcher, who's the singer, and Danny Jones, who's the other singer, they knew each other. I can't remember how. My McFly history is rusty, but I know that they both used to write songs with Busted, who like existed before them and were a rock band, but slightly viewed as a boy band because most of their fans were female. But I mean, Busted, in comparison with McFly, Busted sang very like sexy songs like about trying to seduce your high school teacher and stuff, whereas McFly sang pop music. But they were a band and they like placed an ad in the newspaper trying to find a drummer and a bassist. So like not really created in a lab, but sort of created in a lab, but they did it themselves. And like there was always the debate about whether McFly was a boy band or not. And I just always thought it was really weird because I'm like, well, no, they just make poppy rock music. Like they play their own instruments.
Yeah.
It's this whole thing. And like, but I mean, also throughout history, like there have been like the Beatles were seen as a boy band at the time and they played all their own instruments. They were friends in high school. Like nothing
Yeah.
about them is a boy band. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of crazy to me that they would be labeled as a boy band.
yeah, I don't 100% get that. And then I mean, also, I feel like there's always that point in a boy band's career where one of them's like, "Oh, I've been teaching myself guitar. Can I bring it out on stage?" And I feel like they think that that
Mhm.
makes them get taken more seriously. And so I never really understood why. Like, I don't see why boy band is a bad word. Like, I don't get it. And
Yeah.
it makes no sense to me. And I don't understand why like I feel like any group of guys who plays music is a boy band. Like it's not a big deal.
I mean, I guess there's two issues, and the one with the term boy band is um the obviously like the fangirl side of it.
Yeah.
But number two is the fact that boy bands are manufactured.
Yeah.
And a non-boy band is not manufactured. And so part of that too is they're like, well, we write our own stuff. Like we play all of our instruments. Like we're not just doing this to be consumed by for fangirls or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
part of it I think is like, well, no, like we're actual musicians. We actually write our own music. And the other part of it is like, we don't want to be called a boy band because that means we're less credible because all of our fans are girls. So I think there's two sides there. This brings us into our prime example of 5 Seconds of Summer.
Yes. 5 seconds of summer are problematic.
For context, if you don't know, for context, 5 Seconds of Summer was a band that existed in they're from New Zealand, I think, or they're from
They're from
Australia. I don't know.
Australia.
So they existed as a band like pre One Direction, but then they could have easily been in like the Warped Tour scene of things, but
Yeah.
then they were like covering One Direction or something, and basically One Direction discovered them and then took them on tour multiple times, and so they turned from what could have been this like
Like all-time low
normal
love
Warped Tour type
child.
band. Yes, exactly. Into a pop production. So this is why 5 Seconds of Summer is really interesting to talk about in this context.
Yeah. And so it's just this because like I mean, people who have gone to Warped Tour know that there aren't only bands from America on the tour. Like 5 Seconds of Summer could have very easily started opening for bands like All Time Low or The Main or whoever was going to
Yep.
Australia and like gotten involved in that scene. And I like don't know enough about 5 Seconds of Summer to like know why that didn't happen, but I guess I mean like Louis from One Direction like is a pop punk kid. So I assume that he found out about them and he's the reason why they're famous. So that's my assumption. But basically there was a 2015 Rolling Stone article. It was like a cover story with 5 Seconds of Summer that was like very controversial. It was like controversial at the time, and I'm pretty sure, even though like I could just be speaking out of my ass right now, but I'm pretty sure that like fans still are mad about it. There was this whole Rolling Stone thing that like really prefaced 5 Seconds of Summer as a rock band, which I don't 100% think that their fans viewed them as. I think that their fans viewed them as like a pop rock band. So it's that like sugar-coated thing that kind of All Time Low has, where it's like they don't give you the persona of like Motley Crue. Like they don't feel like the rock bands that your parents tell you that about, you know? They don't give off that vibe. And I feel like they kind of want to give off the vibe of like an old school rock band, but it's unnecessary because I feel like they're still like, well, not but I feel like fans of bands like All Time Low are like, oh, they live like a rock star lifestyle. Like, you don't think that they're like a pop band. You treat them like a rock band, but like also at the same time, they have like that glossy finish, which I think is a smart move, honestly. But so in the Rolling Stone article, they like talked about how they would like basically use the fact that they were in this band to like hook up with girls. And they insinuated that they might have orgies, and it was just this whole thing that was insane. And fans did not like it. But it was just like this whole thing where they were basically explaining to this like Rolling Stone guy very openly that they use their fame to hook up with.
God, I'm looking at the quote right now.
And so what they said what do you want?
This is gross.
Would you like to share? Right, I feel like you should share, and I'm gonna find my other favorite quote.
Oh my god. So here we go. They were okay, Luke says they took full advantage of the tension. They were wildest on their early tours when they'd go to a bar and mingle with fans after a show. Quote, when you put 4 young dudes on a tour bus playing theaters then arenas, you're going to have sex with a lot of girls, I guess, says Hemmings. We had a good time. And then they ask multiple girls in one night, and he says, I feel like I shouldn't say, he says with a smirk. And then he says, you could say the possibility of that is high. And then the question is multiple girls at the same time. And he says, the possibility is high. Again, he says, the possibilities are endless.
Luke Hemmings being a slut doesn't bother me.
Weren't they like 18?
Luke Hemmings using the fact that he tours with One Direction to be a slut is what bothers me. The thing that really grinded my gears and made me literally go down a rabbit hole of watching 5 Seconds of Summer interviews to see if they literally just slipped up in the Rolling Stone article was that this is a direct quote from Ashton Irwin, quote that set me off and made me question everything and made it really hard for me to like a band I really liked, but like now I'm fine with just their music, was that in this Rolling Stone article, Ashton Irwin said, and I quote, we're getting good at it now. We don't want to just be like for girls. We want to be for everyone. That's the great mission that we have. I'm already seeing a few male fans start to pop up, and that's cool. If the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all those guys can do it, so can we. And I don't personally know Mick Jagger, but I think that Mick Jagger would be in the same wheelhouse as Harry Styles, which is that teen girls know what they're talking about. And if you gain their respect, you can gain everyone's respect. And Ashton Irwin,
he's glossing over the
have my respect.
He's glossing over the fact that like the Beatles' primary fan base was females back in the day, was women.
But there's never been like an interview with Elvis or an interview with the Beatles or an interview with like Mick Jagger or even like a Motley Crue. None of these bands that had like a lot of female fans like ever once were like, oh, we're not a real band because girls like us. I just get so angry because it's just like, dude. And like there was also a video interview, which like if you read our show notes, you can watch it. But a male interviewer is interviewing 5 Seconds of Summer, and I think that this was during their like first tour. Like they look very young in the video, and he's clearly hinting at the fact that they open for One Direction. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but he basically was like, oh, like, how do people react when they find out you play their own instruments? And Ashton Irwin, like, kind of, like, rolls his eyes and is like, well, before we went on this tour, like, we didn't know there was any other way to do it. Like, we've been playing instruments our whole lives. Like, why wouldn't we be like a real band who plays guitar? Okay, so Ashton Erlin says this as if he's not being a C word. And he goes, yeah, like somebody came up to us the other day and they were like, oh, it's like so crazy to see people, to see girls go so crazy about guys who are playing guitars.
Sir, what world are you living in? Hello.
Like, I mean, have you like they listen to All Time Low? I'm pretty sure that like Alex Gaspar wrote with them at some point. Like they
Oh, they
know
definitely have now.
like they know that girls go crazy for guys with guitars. Like I don't know what world Ashton Irvin is living in, but I feel like for somebody who was in a band, but like for a while, like they toured with One Direction more than once. And so to shit on music outside of like guys with guitars so often and like so publicly, I think is disgusting. And also to kind of like go back on like the whole basis of this, which is fangirls, like he by proxy, like when he's talking about this, you know in your soul that he is bashing girls. Like he doesn't even have to say it, you know what he's doing.
I think it's so to me it's so odd because like I said when I was talking about the context of this, it's like they could have easily been a Warped Tour type band,
Mm-hmm.
and they were thrust into the limelight by One Direction by touring with them multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just ended up in the whole pop world of like not like they would have been so different if they ended up, going the Warped Tour route of things. And who knows, maybe they still would have trash opinions like this, but it's just it's a very different experience. Like they were put on a platform where I'm sure like they had management, they had marketing, all this stuff that started positioning them as a boy band.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that like we're like, well, we're getting famous and attention, so let's just go with it. And like then they were like, wait, but we don't want to be a boy band. And yeah,
Yeah, it's just like
that
I
doesn't
feel like
excuse what he says though.
no, not at all. And but I feel like I can understand slightly like maybe the annoyance of having your main platform be like younger than you thought it was going to be and like more inclined to like pop music, like especially because like when I first heard whatever that song is where it's like you look so perfect, that one, like I think that's literally what it's called, but like they're playing Warped Tour superlatives, like they're using terminology that exists in the like Warped Tour fandom bubble. Like they literally were like, okay, we're gonna write a song based off of things that like honestly girls between the ages of 15 and 20 in America like. And that's what they did. And
Yep.
like
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
like very aware that they write their own music, do all this stuff, but they still were creating music that girls would be interested in, because like I don't care what they say, like they're like they knew, because they've seen, because like if you like All Time Low or you like any of those sort of bands that do really well, like that the way in is through girls. Like there's no other way in, like really, unless you make like metal music. But it's like if you're doing that sort of like pop punk, like pop emo sort of genre bend, like girls are the gateway. And like you will get male fans, especially if you show up at Warped Tour, because there's guys there all the time. And if your music sounds good, nobody like people care, obviously there's always like that dumb stigma, but I just feel like when you're at Warped Tour, people are just like, that band sounds cool, I don't care who's listening to them, I'm gonna like go in that mosh pit, and if I have a good time, I'm gonna buy their CD. So I can understand like when you look up to Warped Tour type bands, like, and then you wind up touring with like a pop boy band, to be kind of like like weird about it and like kind of uncomfortable, but also like you could say no. Like if you really hated it that much, you could just be like,
Yep.
no, I'm going to wait around for Fearless Records. Like I'm not going to sit
Yeah.
here and like let these people say things. And so it just is frustrating to me, because it's like, yeah, you can't, like I personally can't be mad at a band for taking an opportunity, because like who would pass that up? But like I can be mad at that band accepting that opportunity and then being like, oh, I hate who like I basically
fans,
saying
like,
that like they
along with
hate
it.
who listens to their music, and it's like
Yep.
that's not cool.
Yeah.
So he also said in the same interview where he said that somebody meaning himself said to him that like they were shocked that girls were going so crazy about guys with bands. He said that the same person also was like, I haven't seen that in at least 10 years. And then Ashton's like, oh, like it was so nice for somebody to acknowledge that we're doing something different. What are you doing different, Mr. Irwin? Please send me an email. Let me know. Like,
yes. Number one, literally just look anywhere else but like Billboard 100 and you will see bands continuing to be rock and roll is not dead. Like it exists.
Mm-hmm.
You just haven't put in the effort to look for it. And number two, yes, exactly what you said. 5 Seconds of Summer came after All Time Low, came after all these pop punk bands. And what have they done that was original? I don't know.
Like, I mean, literally the only thing that they did was original is like make Warped Tour songs sound like pop songs. And I don't even think that that's original, but I think at the time it was slightly different. But I just mean like
they made pop punk more pop.
Yeah. And I just feel like at the time that 5 Seconds of Summer was like on the up, like 21 Pilots were doing really well. And like so there were other bands that were making like alternative music that were on the charts, winning Grammys, like getting acknowledged. And for like Ashton Irwin to be like, oh yeah, like nobody's making like good music with guitars anymore. Like, shut up.
Also, like, hard to believe that he wasn't still listening to these bands and knew who they were anyways. Like, he knew who these bands were. So
Oh, I know, because in the same Rolling Stone article, they created like years worth of the Maine merch because the freaking interviewer thought the Maine was an emo band. And like,
oh yeah.
like,
wait, oh my gosh, wait, Sarah, for the people who don't know, please enlighten us.
So the really funny thing about this, the other funny thing, ridiculous, wild thing about this 5 Seconds of Summer Rolling Stone article was that they were like also trying to like, I guess, get clout in the pop punk scene. And so they're like name dropping these bands and stuff. And I think it was Luke who was talking about like this girl he was dating and how like they started dating because they had all this like music in common and how they both really loved the Maine. And this guy, Patrick Doyle, referred to the Maine as an Arizona emo group, which like if anybody's ever listened to the Maine, like the Maine's not emo. Like sometimes they write songs that like are on the cusp, maybe, but that's like if you're really looking into things. And it's just like the craziest, funniest thing because that sentiment sent the Maine fans wild and sent the Maine wild because it was just this like hilarious like slip, but like not even, it just was clear that this man did no research, which I think is hilarious because the article is like, this guy's clearly a good interviewer because he got all this trash out of this band. But like the man has been selling like hats that are like Make America Emo Again. They sold shirts that were like the Arizona emo group, the Maine, like this whole thing.
I had one.
I sleep in the Arizona emo group like shirt all the time. It's just like it was the funniest thing, even to people like me who like don't really live in that like the Maine fan bubble anymore. I was like, I need to buy everything with this on it because this is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. 5 Seconds of Summer has brought me lots of lols, mostly at the expense of Ashton Irwin. So you might be thinking that I am extremely biased based off of a 2015 Rolling Stone interview, which like, okay, I don't blame you, but we're not dumb and we did do our research. We tried to save Ashton Irwin's ass from being reamed this hard, and unfortunately, I don't really think that he has redeemed himself, especially not in my eyes. The other three might not be as bad as I thought they were. I couldn't really find anything online of them being like, sorry, we didn't really mean it. There was like one tweet from Michael Clifford being like, of course they take things out of context, but he like wasn't specifying. I honestly think that he was discussing the whole like sex with One Direction fans thing and not the whole we wish men liked us. So there was like nothing in 2015, and then in 2018, 5 Seconds of Summer did a Billboard cover shoot and interview done by Chris Payne, who's a very good journalist, but he did ask the question, and I quote, "Being a band of all guys, what have you learned over the years from having a fan base that's largely female?" And Jenna, how do you feel about what Ashton Irwin responded to the lovely Chris Payne?
Oh, I want to believe that he is like trying to move in the right direction, but either he's not there or he has a horrible way of iterating it.
Ashton Irwin responds to the question first, and he goes into this whole story about how like he grew up with a single mom, and so he's like seen women suffer, so he like understands, and so he like gets that, and I quote, "Lyrics are important to younger women who are trying to understand relationships or just feelings in general," which I feel like is a little patronizing, but also again I look at Ashton Irwin with like red tinted glasses, so I just see a devil. But he finished this whole thing about talking about his single mom with saying, and I quote, "I think where a lot of young male bands go wrong is they get caught up in the women liking their band. There's a bunch of women hanging around who might sexually desire you. That can be confusing to a young man, but it's all about respect." Unquote. And I just like, Jenna, how do you feel about that?
I kind of want to hear your thoughts first, and then
So
yeah.
I feel like he did a lot of word vomit to try and be like, I get women, and then kind of was just like, but they sexually desire us, so maybe they don't really see us as music and more as sexual objects, is how I've read it. But again, I hate this man. So my viewpoints are like not that great about him.
I mean, what he said is true, and this is definitely an issue, not just with this band,
Yeah.
with all like every male band who's like on the cusp of like 20.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're young female fans looking up to them in more way than one. And the thing that's difficult about this situation is like 20-year-old dudes aren't smart enough to know that they're in a power situation here and they need to act appropriately. Like a lot of them are going to end up taking advantage of younger girls and saying, but like, they were into it and all this stuff. And like, but they don't realize how much power they have in that position of actually, you need to like step up and do the right thing here, because it's very quickly turns into a very bad situation. And he does say it's all about respect, but like, so I get where he's coming from, but at the same time, it's like this is an issue of misogyny within the music industry, and it's like if even like the managers, the people who are surrounding like bands like this, if they're not telling them, hey, like reality check, you need to like watch yourself, it's like they are young, they are fucking dumb, like I don't know. I just think it's not excusable, but I think they're too stupid to like know better. But like it needs to change in general. Like they like this whole system needs to change, and bands need to be better about calling each other out and like watching their behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is a whole other episode that we're going to touch on later on in the podcast, is just like, I mean, Five Sauce are a pop punk band, and there is like a major issue in the pop punk band of bands kind of taking advantage of fans and being like, but they wanted to. And it's like, I'm sorry, if I was
Yeah.
16 years old and like a guy in a band that I really liked, like showed me any interest, I would do whatever he asked me to do, just because I was 16 and stupid and like boys in my town did not like me. But again, we'll get there at some point. But so him basically turning the dial and going the like sexualized route is again just kind of like talking down to the fans, because it's like, yes, I'm sure that a good portion of like any like, we're all like hot-blooded humans, like we're not gonna not be sexually attracted to people. It just isn't really what happens, unless of course you're asexual, but that's a whole other ballpark. So I mean, there are going to be a good portion of fans that look at them as sexual objects, but they also like their music, and I just feel like he glazed over it and just was like, this is a thing that happens. And so like Callum, who is honestly like kind of quiet from my perspective, literally this whole episode I don't even think I mentioned him once, so clearly he's like not that problematic in my mind. His answer to the question after Ashton responds is him saying, quote, "You never want to be patronizing towards younger fans, in particular female, because that's what our demographic was and still is in large part." And I think that is a very good like next thing to read after reading the confusing jumble of words that Ashton Irwin said, because Callum is acknowledging that their fan base is female and that like you can't, like, you have to treat that in a certain way and you don't want to patronize them like lyrically or honestly in any way whatsoever. And so like he was saying that like in their lyrics they always overestimate their fans, and that's why like their lyrics are so deep. I don't really know about that, but again, personal opinion. But I do think that his acknowledgement that their fans are still like their fan base is still largely female is nice, and also saying that like they don't want to patronize them. But again, they're talking like lyrically, and I don't really I think that they're kind of skirting around the actual question by discussing the songs.
I agree. And that question wasn't specific to like in the 2015 Rolling Stone article, you said you hate your female fans. It wasn't specific to that. It was kind of open-ended. Just kind of like, what have you learned over time? And I think, you know, if they didn't address it until then that was a long time coming.
This article is obviously like not a rebuttal to Rolling Stone. Like this is Chris's own interview, his own thing. And like the question before this also did not have to do with like lyrically. Chris was just asking the band like the fact that a lot of their fans got into the music as early teens and now obviously they're older, and he was trying to find out like how they've been able to like reconnect with these people. And so, I mean, while that sort of has to do with lyrically, there's lots of different ways that you can connect with fans in a new way as the band gets older and the fans get older that don't have to do with lyrics. So like their responses focusing on like the lyric thing to Chris's question about having a large female fan base, I think is just them trying to not fully talk about what Chris is actually asking.
Ashton does follow up and say, to all of my favorite bands, the Rolling Stones and stuff, the younger female fans have always come first because they know it's good. So, I mean, like, he acknowledges it. I just feel like he is horrible at talking to the media and should not be allowed to talk to the media as a representative of the band. Like, did he ever get media training?
Well, that's what I'm saying is like they've been in the spotlight for so long. You would think that they would teach this man to get his foot out of his mouth. And I mean, you're mentioning the good part of his answer to that question, whereas he started it being like, we don't actually focus on who likes us that much, but then after that says, I really enjoy meeting male fans as well. And it's like, why do you have to do that? Like, I just think that it's like, if you're gonna say that you don't focus on who likes you, but then follow it up being like, we do have male fans, which is basically what he's doing. It's like, it's unnecessary. Like the people who read this and your interviewer, like they know that people of both genders listen to 5 Seconds of Summer. Like, we're not stupid. So I just think that Ashton, again, feeling the need to mention male fans is just like unnecessary and kind of negates him acknowledging what I've already said in the past 2 episodes, that like the Rolling Stones never had a problem with having a female fan base. I just have so many issues with this man. I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm not, but I am, because like then later on, he also was saying that these bands have like always understood their fan bases, meaning that they've understood that their fan bases are female. And so he then acknowledges that the Beatles, like obviously like everybody knows that the Beatles we're constantly like genre changing, genre bending, like doing all different sort of stuff. And he goes, so you go from I Want to Hold Your Hand to Eleanor Rigby. You just keep passing on the torch of what you think is good. And again, I think that is patronizing to women. And I might just be taking this personally because like I have never been the one to like quote unquote love songs. So I Want to Hold Your Hand is genuinely my least favorite Beatles song. And like if somebody was like, you can only listen to one Beatles song ever again and you have to choose between I Want to Hold Your Hand and Eleanor Rigby, I would pick Eleanor Rigby because it's more interesting. And so I think that this is him. Has he never met a woman? Like I don't understand it, because it just feels like he's like, oh, girls like love songs, and then if you teach girls about other type of songs, then they'll like them. And I think that that's patronizing.
Yeah, no, it is, because he says they understood their fan base and wanted to show them another side of music. But so yeah, that's simplifying women to the point of they only liked the Beatles because of their love songs and their looks, and that they not because of the music, which I agree, as you said, is very patronizing.
I'm really sorry if I'm offending anybody. I really genuinely love 5 Seconds of Summer's music, and I feel like that just shows personal growth that I'm very proud of, that I can do that. But I just think that this man needs to go to media training boot camp or like actually talk to some women, because I'm convinced he never has. I'm just curious if like do you know any other bands who have been this loud about like girls, like we need guy fans to feel worthy of being a band?
Not off the top of my head, to be honest.
And that's what's so wild to me. Like I know that it's been said before. Like there was a Guardian article that discussed this and they brought up Penn Badgley's band, but like Penn Badgley sent this girl a literal apology.
So the Guardian article, she was preparing for an interview with them, and she said she came across a previous interview in which they were asked their favorite thing to see in the audience on like from the stage, and their answer was guys, and they said, I'm not kidding. And a balanced ratio of men to women, they continued, quote, means we have music listeners in the audience. When it's all girls of a certain age, it's likely that our music might not be their primary interest.
So
end quote.
The only reason why I can say anything about like that isn't me hating this band is Penn Badgley is their front man, and Penn Badgley at this time, which this was happened, so this was 4 years ago, I guess not really, but still, like Gossip Girl was like a big part of pop culture. So I can sort of understand where they're coming from, that maybe there are girls in the audience that only came because they thought Penn Badgley was like cute from Gossip Girl. But also like Mother is like a very specific type of band. And so I feel like if you're gonna spend like the $20 that it costs to go see Mother at like Bowery Ballroom on like a Thursday night at 11 p.m., like you're gonna have listened and been like, this is worth it. Because Penn, I don't even think Penn takes photos. So like it's not worth it just because he's cute. Yeah, that ground my gears. But didn't he sent her an apology letter, didn't he?
So after the interview, and Alexandra tweeted her dislike for their sentiments on gender, I got an email from Penn Badgley. He wanted to explain that he was pushed into answering that question and that his quote had been taken somewhat out of context, but more so he wanted to apologize and let me know that he changed his mind. Quote, every great band ever has played for a predominantly young female audience, and that audience is appreciative and invested and willing to scream and dance with abandon, which is the point of music, end quote.
Penn Badgley made a good point in his apology, but still the fact, even if he was like coerced into like making a statement like he did, like it's still shitty, because like guys don't make things better.
For it before he apologized for it.
Exactly.
It seems like maybe I don't fully know, but it seems like maybe Penn has grown since these days, because he said some pretty more progressive thoughts about, you know, being starring in You on Netflix. And he was like, guys, we shouldn't be romanticizing this serial killer. Something's wrong with you.
No, that is true. So I guess like Penn Badgley has had personal growth. Ashton Irwin still needs to get back to me on his personal growth. if anybody knows any other bands that have said shitty stuff about the fact that their fan base is predominantly female, please get in touch with us. I would love to know. You can tweet at me and Jenna about it. It's like Sara_Feigin and Jenna_million on Twitter, and just like, please tell us every possible outcome of men talking badly about girls liking their music, because we should stop buying their music if they've said these crappy things. So, Jenna, it's your turn to give us the band of the week in 30 seconds. And we're going in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so today I would like to tell you about this supergroup called 1990 Nowhere. It's got some of my favorites. It's out of Los Angeles. Lost Boy Crow, Armors, and Oliver the Kid came together to make this supergroup 1990 Nowhere. And I love them because they're very much that throwback emo anthem chorus, like sing with all your friends in a big room. And they have this one song, it's like Dear Grim Reaper. And I'm like, I just want to get in a pit and yell that with all my friends.
Wow, that actually sounds really cool. I have not heard of them before, and I'm going to go check them out.
Hell yes. Hell to the yes. Follow me on Twitter for more music moments.
We love to yell about these artists way too much on Twitter. So that's at Jenna_million and at Sara_Feigin if you want to follow along for our nonsense.
Thanks for tuning in, and you can join us next week to hear all of our hot takes about One Direction, and more specifically, how they were taken more seriously as solo artists than they ever were as a band.
It's going to be real fun. We're literally going to be dissecting how once Zayn left, how the media tried to make him more palatable for your quote-unquote average day music listener. And then they did the same thing to the rest of the boys once they left. So we hope you join us. It'll be a wild, wild ride. Thanks for joining us on Name 3 Songs. Until next time, never let anyone make you feel bad about your favorite band.
And you're never too cool to listen to Harry Styles.
Don't forget to subscribe to be notified when each episode comes out, and leave us a 5-star review. It really helps.
If you want to find out more about any of the sources we referenced in this episode, you can visit name3songs.com.